All right, good morning and welcome. It's Corporate Governance Platform brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN. I am Funmi Omoburiowo. Let me quickly remind you that ICSAN is dedicated to enhancing the status and practice of corporate governance and administration. On the program this morning, we're going to be looking at the Managing Director's responsibilities as a delegate of the board and head of management. And our guest this morning joins us all the way from Rivers State is Mr. Mac-Barango Otonye, ACIS, Treasurer, Rivers State Chapter of ICSAN, is also Group Company Secretary, Rivers State Investment and Microfinance Agency. Good morning, Mr. Otonye.
Good morning, madam. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
All right, with me also on the program is Anita Monjok. He's a training officer with ICSAN. Good morning, Anita.
Good morning, Fumi.
All right, good to have you right here in the studio. And before we go ahead, let's quickly take this message. We'll be right back.
The world is constantly evolving into a knowledge-based economy where skills and competencies constitutes the lifeblood of public and corporate governance. You therefore need to empower yourself to fit into this new world by gaining basic knowledge and improving your skill set in the governance-focused disciplines. That is why every aspiring as well as practicing professional in governance field needs ICSAN.
ICSAN. What is ICSAN?
ICSAN is a leading statutorily established professional body dedicated to enhancing the status and practice of corporate governance and public administration. ICSAN members are trained as chartered secretaries and administrators.
Who are chartered secretaries and administrators?
Chartered secretaries are high-ranking governance professionals with a broad base of skills, unique amongst other professions. They are trained in law, finance, accounting, administration, strategy development, and corporate governance. In today's world, chartered secretaries and administrators discharge a wide range of duties and responsibilities, including functioning as chairmen of companies, executive directors, non-executive directors, company secretaries, risk managers, compliance managers, board evaluators, and corporate governance evaluators.
That is interesting. How then do I become a chartered secretary and administrator?
Good. Go to the Institute's website, www.icsan.org. You can also visit the National Secretariat of ICSAN at Plot 6, Elephant Cement Way, Alausa, Ikeja, Lagos, to get full information on how to become members. ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
All right, to Corporate Governance Platform. And as I said earlier, we're looking at the Managing Director's responsibilities as a delegate of the board and head of management. All right, Mr. Otonye, let's begin this way. What are the basic roles of the Managing Director?
Okay, now, first of all, the role of the MD, I'll use the word MD,
Okay.
Varies from company to company and organization to organization. However, in a nutshell, the Managing Director occupies a dual position as he is both the head of management and at the same time a member of the board. In most organizations, they are also referred to as CEO, indicating that they have executive responsibilities. The Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance 2018, which is the code that regulates issues of corporate governance, lists out some of the responsibilities of the MD to include, amongst others, the day-to-day management of the organization, implementation of the company's strategic objectives, and participating in board meetings, providing the board with necessary support and information that they need to make those strategic decisions that will guide the organization. So basically, those are the basic roles of the MD in an organization.
Now, why is it not desirable in corporate governance for the Managing Director to also function as the chairman of the organization?
You know, the basic idea behind separating the office of the MD and that of the chairman of the board, which is best practice in corporate governance, It's also provided for in the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance, precisely Principle 2.7. It's basically intended to avoid the situation where a single individual will appropriate the powers of the board and management to himself. It's to ensure that there are checks and balances, which will ultimately create a balance of power on the board, while also ensuring that no individual becomes an all-powerful or dominant personality, both in the management team and on the board. There's this popular saying that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So it's basically to avoid those situations. That situation of somebody occupying that dual position of chairman and MD, which is very common in most one-man organizations, has the capacity to create some form of conflict, because the board is supposed to have an oversight over what the MD, who is the head of the management team, does. And it has the potential to also create some measure of abuse, as the chairman in his role as CEO may also abuse his position and conceal certain very fundamental issues from the board. So there are lots of issues and challenges with it, basically. So it's basically to avoid conflict of interest in a nutshell.
All right. We know that the managing director functions in different capacities, but I wanted to look at its function as a delegate of the board. What does it entail?
The MD as a delegate of the board basically entails the board exercising such powers as may be delegated to him by the board. Although the primary authority for governance, direction, and control of the organization is vested on the board will typically and in practice delegate some of those authorities to the MD. Now, the challenge is what's the extent of the powers that could be delegated to the MD? Is it something that is provided for in the articles or in any document? And also, how do you clearly delineate, okay, these are the powers of the MD? So typically what most organizations do is that there's actually what they call a DOA. That is a delegation of authority document, which spells out the extent of powers the board is delegating to the MD to exercise on its behalf. So basically, the MD functioning as a delegate of the board entails basically exercising such powers that has been vested on him by the board.
What about as head of management?
As head of management, the MD is supposed to provide leadership for the management team. He's supposed to provide inspiring leadership to his team and basically ensure that board decisions are implemented, because the management is the one that is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the organization. So the MD is the alter ego of that team that is supposed to drive the strategic direction of the agency as may have been spelled out by the board. So basically, that's what it entails. It's the head of the management team. He represents the management team at board meetings. It's like the interface between the management team and the board.
Now, there's a provision of the code that says the MD CEO should declare any conflict of interest on appointment and annually thereafter. Now, what do you think is the rationale for this provision?
This is a very, very important provision in corporate governance, because one of the challenges of corporate governance is this issue of conflict of interest. It's a very topical issue when it comes to corporate governance. And basically, this specific provision of the MD declaring his interest upon appointment and annually is basically intended to avoid a situation where the interest of the MD will be in conflict with the interest of the organization. The need for declaration, apart from being consistent with transparency, is also intended to protect the organization. And I would dare say that it's also intended to protect the MD, because in the event of any challenge or issues arising as to the interest of the MD conflicting with that of the organization, the MD could always rely on the defense of disclosure, which is the best remedy in situations of conflict of interest. My position is that the need for declaration should not just be done annually. It's something that should be done on a needs basis. Immediately it arises. You don't need to wait once in a year before you declare your interest.
Okay.
Immediately the situation comes up, you must declare your interest in that particular transaction or that particular issue. So it shouldn't just be a one-off thing annually. No.
Okay. Another provision of the code is that the MD CEO should not be a member of the committees responsible for remuneration, audit, nomination, and governance. Why do you think this is so?
Anyway, this particular provision is not just peculiar to the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance. Even industry-specific codes, like the CBN Code of Corporate Governance, the SEC Code of Corporate, they all contain this kind of provisions, because governance is higher in regulated organizations, such as the financial services and companies that are listed. Now, the whole idea behind saying that prescription that the MD should not be a member of these committees. Now, what are those committees? Remuneration. What does remuneration do? The Remuneration Committee is supposed to sit over issues relating to the remuneration and benefit package of the MD. You can't sit down when they are discussing those kind of issues. You can't be a part of it. Those committees, for practical purposes, they have the powers to invite the MD on specific issues, to address them on specific issues, but he will not be able to vote on those issues. So for the remuneration, you can't sit down where issues around your remuneration are being discussed. Audit. The audit committee is supposed to oversee everything the management team does and report to the board accordingly. You cannot have oversight over what you do. Nomination and governance. What does the nomination and governance committee do? Basically, part of what they do is to source for persons that will occupy some very sensitive positions within the management team, such as executive directors. They also have responsibility to source for who should function as director, whether he's an independent director, he's an executive director, or he's just a normal director. So those committees have a very, very strategic role to play in terms of governance. So there is no way the MD can function in those committees, because it's like being a judge in his own cause. Because given the larger-than-life personnel of the MD and to ensure the autonomy and independence of the respective boss committee, it is intended that the MD should not be a part of those committees where those issues are being discussed. So that's basically the reason why.
Oh, all right. I'll say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Mac-Barango Otonye, ACIS Treasurer, Rivers State Chapter of ICSAN, Group Company Secretary, Rivers State Investment and Microfinance Agency. Thank you for joining us on Corporate Governance Platform this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. All right, Anita, I'm sure we have some announcements.
Yes, we do.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. The Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, in collaboration with the X Academy, is organizing a virtual training titled Strategic Business Synergy, Issues and Success Ideas. This training aims to interrogate relevant survival strategies and issues because of the challenges faced by corporate Nigeria and garner knowledge that will enable them to remain afloat in a challenging business environment. The date is October 27 to 28, 2021, time 10 a.m. For more inquiries, please call Michael on 080-2311-7969, 080-2311-7969. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Anita Monjok, training officer with ICSAN. All right, that's a bit this morning right here on Corporate Governance Platform, brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN. We'll return again next week, Wednesday, 10:15 a.m. right here on Equate 9.7 FM. I am Funmi Omoburiwo. Enjoy the rest of the day.